At 2:23 a.m., my phone buzzed with an alert nobody in my building was supposed to have. Not the usual market headline, not a breaking news push, a plain text ping from a private channel that only a handful of risk analysts used when something really smelled wrong. VIX spike in 17 minutes. Banks first. Don't ask why. I stared at it long enough for the screen to dim, then watched the chart like you watch a hallway after hearing a floorboard creak. 17 minutes later, the volatility index jumped exactly as predicted. Clean, sharp, almost polite. That was strange. The detail that made it wrong was the timing. The messages weren't random. They came every 143 minutes, like a metronome that didn't care about weekends, sleep, or common sense. And each time, the market twitched in the direction the message suggested, just enough to look like coincidence. If this isn't noise, then whoever's doing it isn't predicting crises. They're rehearsing them. And if I'm reading this correctly, someone already knows I'm watching. By 6 a.m., I was back in the office with the kind of coffee that tastes like fear and burnt plastic. The floor was quiet. New York quiet, where silence isn't peace. It's money holding its breath. I didn't go to my desk. I went straight to the glass conference room, opened my laptop, and pulled the last 3 weeks of those 143-minute pings into a timeline. My name is Mason. I'm a risk analyst. One of the people paid to imagine disasters before they're allowed to become headlines. Not a trader, not a hero. More like a professional pessimist with spreadsheets and a key card. I have a habit that annoys everyone above me. When something doesn't fit, I don't let it go. I don't park it for later. I zoom in until the pixels scream. The alerts came from an account that didn't exist in our directory, just a blank handle, a blank icon, and a signature string that looked like a checksum. I traced the routing through internal logs and found a neat little hole where the data should have been. Someone had scrubbed it, not clumsily, cleanly, like it was designed to be found only by someone who knew what clean looked like. I was taking screenshots when the door clicked behind me. Donna stepped in without knocking. Compliance, always dressed like a courtroom. "You're in early," she said, as if early was an offense. I couldn't sleep, I lied, and kept my eyes on the screen. Dana leaned over my shoulder. Her perfume was expensive, but her voice wasn't. "Mason, whatever that is, close it." "It's not whatever. It's a pattern. Someone is calling market moves before they happen." She sighed the way people sigh when a dog brings them a dead rat. "Do you know what that sounds like? Insider trading, market manipulation, conspiracy, pick a felony." "That's why I'm looking," I said. "If it's inside, we need to know. If it's outside," she cut in, "then it's not your job. And it's definitely not your job to build a little shrine to it at 6 in the morning." I finally turned to face her. "Dana, the pings are timed. Every 143 minutes. Like a system heartbeat." Her expression didn't change, but her eyes did. A flicker. Too fast to be fear. Too precise to be nothing. "Listen," she said, lowering her voice. "Our fund has government clients. We have contracts that don't show up in your onboarding packet. You don't want to trip a wire you can't even see." I swallowed. In my head, I saw my apartment door, my sister's number in my favorites, the security badge that let me into this building and could just as easily lock me out forever. "If I drop this," I said, "and it's real, we get crushed. Publicly, legally. We lose everything." Dana held my gaze. "And if you don't drop it," she said, "you might lose more than your reputation." Then she tapped the screen, right on the timeline of pings, and added almost casually, "They know who looks at what, Mason. They always do." And just like that, the room felt smaller. Not because of the glass, because of the possibility that I wasn't alone in it. I waited until Dana left before I did the stupid thing. Not the illegal thing. Not yet. Just the stupid thing. I pulled the fire alarm on my own career and started digging anyway. Our firm had a sandbox environment, an internal simulation engine used to stress test portfolios against hypothetical disasters. Most people used it the way you use an umbrella. You open it only after you feel the first drops. I used it the way you use a smoke detector. I wanted it screaming before the fire. I copied the timestamp series, every 143 minutes, and overlaid it on market microstructure data. Tiny fluctuations in volume, spreads, odd lot trades, the kind of small stuff that gets waved off as background noise. It wasn't noise. Right before each ping, there was a faint, repeating pattern. A thin ripple of micro-orders across dozens of unrelated stocks. Not enough to move the market alone. Just enough to touch it, like tapping a sleeping animal to see if it's awake. Then, after the ping, the real movement arrived. The stampede. Someone wasn't pushing the market with money. They were pushing it with attention. I called Ria on an encrypted line, my one friend left in the building who still enjoyed being right more than being safe. She answered from a stairwell, breathless like she'd been running from something invisible. "Tell me you're not doing something dumb," she said. "I'm doing something measurable," I replied. "I need you to look at this." 10 minutes later, she slid into the conference room with a tablet under her arm and a hoodie pulled up like anonymity was a physical object. She studied my timeline, then the micro-order ripples, then the correlation spikes. Her eyebrows lifted. "This isn't classic manipulation," she muttered. "Too distributed, too small." "That's what I thought," I said. "So what is it?" Ria didn't answer with a speech. She stood up, grabbed the dry erase marker, and drew a simple shape on the glass wall. A hill. Then she drew a ball near the top. "Picture everyone on social media," she said. "Everyone with a phone. Everyone trying to make sense of the world in real time." She flicked the marker like it was the ball. "You don't need to push the ball down the hill. If it's already balanced near the edge, you just need a vibration, a rumor, a chart, a trending phrase, a leak." I stared at the hill. "You're saying the market is the ball." "Part of it," she said. "The market is people. Funds are people. Algorithms are people who taught machines their fears." She pulled up her own screen and opened a dashboard I didn't recognize. Her private project. The kind you build when you don't trust official tools. On it were heat maps of online sentiment, news velocity, and bot activity. "Watch this," she said. She selected one of the past pings, 3 days ago. The moment the mysterious account warned about banks first. Then she rewound the internet like it was a security tape. In the hour leading up to the ping, small clusters of accounts started posting the same style of question, innocent, casual, almost bored. Anyone else worried about liquidity? Weird how regional banks are moving. Feels like 2008 vibes, no? Not enough to trend. Not enough to get flagged. Just enough to seed a thought in thousands of separate minds. Then came the ping. Then came a slightly ominous headline from a minor outlet. Then came a few influencer accounts reacting with concern. Then came the stampede, a cascade. Not information flowing because it was true, information flowing because everyone believed everyone else had a reason. I felt the coldest kind of admiration. "So the fund isn't predicting crises," I said. "They're timing the moment when the crowd is most unstable." Ria nodded once. And the 143 minutes? She said. That's not a signature. That's a schedule, a cycle. Like ad auctions, like engagement experiments, like someone is running the public like a lab. I glanced at the door, half expecting Dana's shadow to appear. If I prove this, I said, we burn our clients. If I ignore it, we become part of it. Ria leaned in. There's another option, she whispered. If they're steering attention with microstimuli, we can test it. We can steer it back. The words hung between us like a match over gasoline. On my screen, the next ping slot approached, less than 40 minutes away. I took a breath and opened a new window. If this was a game, the only way to learn the rules was to make a move. And I clicked join. The next ping arrived exactly on schedule, like it had been waiting for me to blink. Energy names, noon sell-off, watch retail chatter. Ria and I didn't talk. We just moved. Two people pretending calm while our screens filled with signals that shouldn't exist. She tracked social platforms. I tracked order flow. We weren't trying to stop the wave yet. We were trying to prove it wasn't weather. At 11:12 a.m., a thin smear of posts started appearing. Same tone, same sentence rhythm, different accounts. Gas storage numbers feel off. Anyone else hearing about refinery trouble? Energy ETFs look heavy. It was subtle. Too subtle to be a campaign. But when Ria pulled the metadata, a detail landed like a stone in my gut. Many of the accounts were newly active, but their histories looked grown, like someone had backfilled a life. Then the market twitched. Not a crash. A coordinated flinch. Energy spreads widened, liquidity pulled back, and tiny sell orders popped up across dozens of tickers, all at once, like a nervous system firing. Microstimulus, Ria said. Her voice was flat, which meant she was scared. At noon, the sell-off came. Clean, predictable. And because it looked predictable, algorithms followed it. That was the risk. The unknown fund didn't need to move prices directly. It just had to move expectations at the right time. Then the machines did the heavy lifting. Risk models delevered, funds hedged. Headlines interpreted the movement as market anxiety. And millions of people nodded along because the chart looked like it had a reason. I leaned back, dizzy with it. So the pings are like a starting gun. Ria didn't smile. No, she said. They're a match, and the market is a room full of gas. On my desk phone, a light blinked. Internal line. I didn't recognize the extension. I let it ring twice before picking up. A man's voice, low, polite, trained. Stop looking at timestamps, Mason, he said, as if he was reminding me to take my keys. Then the line went dead. I stared at the receiver, suddenly aware that the conference room glass wasn't protection. It was visibility. And someone had just proven they could see me clearly. We changed rooms. Not because it helped, because doing something felt better than sitting still. Ria took us to a storage closet on the far side of the floor, where the Wi-Fi was weak and the cameras didn't quite angle right. She sat on a box of printer paper and connected through a chain of virtual machines, like she was stepping across stones in a river. I don't think the pings are coming from a person, she said. I watched her screen as she pulled packet captures from the moment the latest alert hit. Then what? An automated account? Worse, she replied. A system designed to look like an account. She highlighted the signature string I'd seen before. To me, it was just characters. To her, it was a fingerprint. She compared it to a database of known message authentication formats. Then she did something that made my mouth go dry. She overlaid it with a timing pattern used in high-frequency advertising exchanges. "This is structured like an ad delivery schedule," she said, "like a bidding cycle." I frowned. Why would an ad schedule predict energy sell-offs? "It wouldn't," she said, "but it would coordinate attention shifts across platforms." She pulled up another layer. Not just social chatter, but search trends, video recommendations, headline placement on minor news sites, tiny movements in what people were shown, nudged, or suggested. Not a single lever. 1,000 micro-levers. "It's not post then crash," she said. "It's tune the room, temperature, lighting, music, until the crowd is ready to move the way you want." I felt my first explanation crumble. I'd been thinking about finance, insiders, traders, a clever fund. But this wasn't finance first. This was behavior first. The market was just the biggest mirror. "So who has that kind of access?" I asked. Ria didn't answer immediately. She ran another check, this time on the infrastructure behind the pings. The routing wasn't random. The packets were bouncing through nodes that belonged to data centers with government contracts and private sector partnerships. "You ever hear the phrase dual use?" she asked quietly. "Tech that can be civilian or military," I said. "Yeah," she replied. "Now imagine attention control as dual use. Elections, panic control, market stability, or market instability." I swallowed. "That's not a fund. That's a capability," she said. The closet felt hotter. The air tasted like toner and bad decisions. Then my phone buzzed. Not the desk phone, my personal one. A new ping. No warning about markets this time. Just 6 words. "Your sister is driving to work." My hands went cold so fast, I almost dropped the phone. Ria's eyes snapped up. "Mason, it's not a threat," I said automatically, because my brain wanted it to not be a threat. Ria shook her head once. "It's worse," she said. "It's proof." They weren't predicting markets anymore. They were measuring how quickly I would obey. I didn't go home. I didn't call my sister. I did the cruelest thing you can do when you're scared. I acted like fear was irrelevant. Ria insisted we move off network entirely. She drove us to a cheap diner in Queens, where the coffee was awful and the booths were vinyl and no one looked up when you walked in. We sat with our backs to the wall like we were in a bad movie. She slid a burner phone across the table. "If they're watching your personal device, ditch it. If they're watching me, we're already late." I picked up the burner like it might bite. Ria opened her tablet and showed me something new. A list of corporate entities tied to the same infrastructure we'd traced. Shells inside shells. A maze of innovation labs and risk mitigation initiatives. And in the center, like a spider with too many legs, one private foundation with an intentionally boring name. No logo. No press. No public leadership. Just money and silence. "That's our unknown fund," Ria said. "But it's not trading. It's funding the system that shapes the crowd." I stared at the foundation's filings. "Who funds them?" Ria's finger hovered, then tapped. "Contracts, grants. Public-private partnerships. The kind that come with non-disclosure agreements thicker than novels." A shadow fell across our table. A man stood there with a plain jacket and a face built for forgetting. Not a gangster, not a cop. Something smoother than both. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. We didn't answer, so he sat anyway. "My name is Caleb," he said. "No last name." "Of course." He placed a small envelope on the table between the sugar caddy and the napkin holder. "You're talented," he said to Ria. "And you're curious," he said to me, like curiosity was a medical condition. Ria didn't touch the envelope. Who are you? Caleb smiled just enough to show he had practice. Let's call me a concerned party. I tried to keep my voice steady. Why message me about my sister? So you'd understand the scale, he said. You keep treating this like a mystery novel. It isn't. It's infrastructure. Ria's jaw tightened. You're manipulating markets by manipulating people. Caleb's smile faded. We're preventing chaos, he said. Sometimes that means guiding attention away from danger. Sometimes it means guiding attention toward it. The alternative is uncontrolled cascades. Like the ones you're rehearsing, I said. He looked at me, and for the first time, his eyes carried something sharp. Rehearsals save lives, he said. You of all people should appreciate simulations. I wanted to throw the coffee. Instead, I asked, what do you want? Caleb tapped the envelope once. You stop. You go back to your desk. You pretend you never saw the metronome. Ria leaned forward. And if we don't? Caleb's voice stayed polite. Then you learn what it feels like to be the subject, not the observer. He stood, nodded as if we'd reached a mutual understanding, and walked out. Only after he left did I open the envelope. Inside was a printed screenshot of my sandbox simulation, with a note underneath, nice model, shame if it leaks. The message was clear. They weren't just watching. They were ready to frame us as the threat. Back at the office that night, after hours under the hum of half-lit hallways, Ria and I made a decision that felt like stepping off a roof and hoping the fall would teach us to fly. If attention is the lever, she said, we pull it. We didn't need to crash the market. We needed to test whether the system would react to a stimulus we controlled. A harmless one. A fake tremor. Ria drafted a soft seed campaign, nothing illegal, nothing explicit. Just a set of neutral, plausible questions spread across small communities. Energy storage, shipping delays, a minor regulatory rumor. The kind of chatter that could happen naturally. We pushed it out slowly through accounts Ria controlled. Real accounts, old accounts, no bots. We kept the content bland, almost boring, because boring travels quietly. Then we waited for the metronome. At the next 143-minute mark, the mysterious ping hit. But it wasn't about energy. It was about us. Watch for manufactured chatter. Containment protocols active. My stomach dropped. They saw it immediately. Ria's fingers moved fast, pulling logs, comparing timestamps. Not just saw, she whispered. They anticipated. A new layer appeared on her screen, like a curtain being yanked back. Our seed posts weren't just being monitored. They were being absorbed into a larger system that classified them, weighted them, and then counter-programmed the feed around them. Instead of spreading, our chatter vanished into silence. Recommended content shifted. Search suggestions changed. The room temperature adjusted. The crowd's attention redirected away from our spark before it could become a flame. They had an immune system. And then came the real price. My badge stopped working. I tried the elevator again. Red light. A security guard approached, apologetic in the way people are when they've been given instructions they don't understand. Mason, they told me to escort you out. Who told you? I asked, already knowing the answer would be someone. Ria grabbed my arm. We have to go. Now. We walked out of the building like criminals who hadn't committed a crime yet. My phone buzzed. Personal phone, burner, didn't matter. The system had ways. A final message appeared, calm as a heartbeat. You wanted to enter the game. Welcome. And that's when I understood the cost of knowledge in a world run by cascades. Once you see the lever, you become something that must be managed. Because if you can move the crowd, you can threaten the people who move it for a living. We didn't run like in the movies. We did something worse. We tried to be invisible in a city that sells visibility by the hour. Ria drove without GPS, turning off main roads, cutting through neighborhoods that didn't belong to our lives. I kept watching the burner phone, half expecting it to light up with another casual proof that they could touch anything I loved. It didn't. Instead, something stranger happened. The pings kept coming every 143 minutes, right on time. But now they weren't trying to warn me off. They were performing, like the show didn't care whether the audience stayed. Ria pulled into an all-night parking garage and killed the engine. The concrete smelled like oil and old rain. She balanced her tablet on the steering wheel and opened the feed analytics again. "Look," she said. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. The system's alerts were still predicting moves, still aligning with cascades. But when Raya layered the same pattern over our behavior, the moments we searched, the moments we messaged, the moments we moved rooms, the alignment was too perfect. The pings weren't just synchronized with market tremors. They were synchronized with observers. "With us?" I asked. "With anyone who looks," Ria said. "Anyone who crosses a certain threshold of attention. They don't target the whole public. They target the people who could interpret the mechanism." She ran one more test. Ugly, desperate, brilliant. She used a script to simulate 100 fake watchers across different networks, each one querying the same traces we had. She staggered them, randomized them, made them look like a scatter of curious analysts in different cities. The result hit like a punch to the throat. The 143-minute cadence shifted. Not by much, seconds, then a minute, then two, adjusting itself like a predator adjusting its pace to match the herd. The interval wasn't a broadcast schedule, it was a feedback loop. "They're not sending pings to move the market," I said slowly, the words forming like ice. "They're using the market moves to communicate." Ria nodded, eyes wide. "It's a beacon," she whispered. "But not to traders, to the system, to anyone inside the infrastructure that knows how to read it." I felt the twist in my gut, the part that had been proud of our detective work turning into nausea. All this time, I'd assumed the alerts were a weapon aimed outward. Steer the crowd, steer the market, profit, control, repeat. But what if the market wasn't the target? What if the market was the carrier signal? The loudest thing in the world, pulsing across every screen, every feed, every institution. Perfect for hiding messages in plain sight. A crisis predicted too well doesn't just look like genius. It looks like coordination. And coordination is how you identify the other players. I looked at Raya. "So when we pushed back, we didn't threaten them. We identified ourselves," she said. The old strategy, observe, model, counter, nudge, suddenly felt like walking into a dark room and shouting, "I'm here." If this was a beacon, then every attempt to decode it was a handshake. Every pattern we confirmed was a reply. And if whoever built it was using it to find and sort the people capable of understanding, then the deadly truth wasn't that we couldn't stop the cascades. It was that we'd already joined the network that creates them. Ria's tablet chimed with the next ping. Not market-related, not a threat. Just 3 words, plain as a signature. "Confirmed. Welcome back." I stared at the screen, and the garage suddenly felt less like a hiding place and more like a waiting room. For a long minute, neither of us spoke. The garage lights buzzed overhead, steady and indifferent, like the world's cheapest heartbeat. I held the burner phone in both hands, thumbs hovering over a keyboard that felt heavier than it should. Ria broke first. If it's a beacon, she said, then any response is a signal back. Silence is a signal too. Everything is a signal. I pictured the market screens, millions of them, each candle and headline and nervous tweet acting like a carrier wave. A place to hide messages where nobody could turn the volume down. We can't outshout them, I said, but we might be able to lie. Ria's eyes narrowed. You mean spoof the response? Not the beacon, I replied. The reader. Our mistake had been acting like investigators. Investigators are rare. They stand out. They get collected. So we built a mask. Ria opened her tablet and started writing code like it was a prayer she didn't believe in. We spun up dozens of watchers again, only this time they weren't curious. They were noisy, sloppy, inconsistent. Some clicked the wrong files. Some ran broken analyses. Some behaved like interns with caffeine and no attention span. We flooded the threshold with mediocrity. Then I did the part that tasted like copper. I sent one message into the same channel the pings came from. Not a confession, not a threat. A simple line, formatted like a board compliance note. False positive. Pattern not reproducible. Closing review. It wasn't truth. It was camouflage. The next 143-minute mark arrived. The alert came late, by almost 5 minutes. Then another came early. The cadence wobbled just a little, like a compass near a magnet. Ria exhaled. We muddied their feedback, she whispered. We made ourselves statistically boring. But boring doesn't mean safe. By morning, my corporate accounts were dead. My badge was canceled permanently. A legal notice hit my inbox from a private address. Dense language, airtight threats. Our firm would call it termination for cause. The world would call it an analyst who got weird and got fired. And then the real price arrived, quiet and personal. My sister texted me, "Hey, 2 guys came by asking about you. They were polite. It freaked me out." What's going on? I stared at her message until the words blurred. I couldn't tell her the truth without pulling her into it. I couldn't lie without becoming the thing I hated. So I did the only thing left that still felt like protection. I called her and said, "I'm sorry," and kept the explanation small. "Work trouble, legal mess. I'm leaving town for a bit. Please don't answer unknown numbers. Please trust me." She was silent for a beat, then said, "Mason, who are you fighting?" I wanted to say, a fund, a system, an invisible hand on the world's attention. Instead I said, nobody. Because the moment you name it, you give it shape. And shape is something people can aim at. That night, Ria and I sat in a cheap motel with the curtains closed, listening to the distant rush of traffic like an ocean you can't swim across. The pings still came, faintly out there in the world. Market moves, headlines, little panics rehearsed into being. We had chosen not to answer the beacon directly. We chose to distort the mirror instead. And the echo that stayed with me was simple and colder than any chart. In a world where attention can be engineered, the scariest power isn't predicting what people will do. It's deciding what they will notice and watching them call it free will.